I bet you there's somebody out there right now going, run, she has on the flannel. So I had some responses to some of the videos I've been making lately, and you know, I'm not doing professional editing, I'm not doing anything spiffy in these videos, I'm just sharing heartfelt thoughts and ideas and beliefs and opinions to everyone else that I think may be experiencing something or may find what I'm going through and what I've learned useful. And so I like to share these things. So after, you know, a decade of being in corrections, either with juvenile or adult offenders, and then counseling and working in the very specific jobs I've had, I learned a lot about people and about myself also, and they helped me. When I was diagnosed with RSD and I had a horrible mountain to climb, it helped me climb the mountain as opposed to standing at the bottom and wanting to blame the mountain on somebody else. So I found it very helpful to have had all of these perspectives of all of these different, you know, lifestyles and ways of living that I had seen. And I had seen failures and I had seen successes and I had seen things that helped and things that hurt. And I was kind of able to put some of these in my tool belt, and it helped me not stay stuck in a rut when I had to deal with my own issues, my own shortcomings, my own mountains to climb. So when I looked at the mountain, I said, well, by God, there's a mountain. We're going to have to climb that sucker. Instead of going, oh, Jesus, this is too much for me. I can't do this. I'm just going to stay at the bottom of the mountain and cry. I've never been much of a crier. So by God, we're going to climb that mountain. So I wanted to help you all learn to understand, identify, or just generally start to look at your own lives in a different way, to be more aware. And I hate the shadow that's on my bangs, on my forehead from my bangs, so I'm turning a little bit. Well, it's just going to have to be there, I guess. But I want to help you all have these tools in your tool belt as well, because it was so helpful to me. It may be helpful for you. And if you don't find anything that I say useful, completely just leave it. Don't worry about it. Go on about your day. Thanks for visiting. Come back and sit a spell, but you don't have to tote nothing off if you don't want it. I always tell people, you know, in life we're pushing a wheelbarrow. In that wheelbarrow are our problems, our things to overcome, our deficits, our dysfunction. They're our stones that we have to carry through life. Don't put any stones in that wheelbarrow that you don't need to. And definitely don't put anybody else's stones in that wheelbarrow. The only things that should be in your wheelbarrow are your problems. Don't carry a load any heavier than you have to. And that's kind of how I have gone through life. And every once in a while you have to stop and sift through the rocks in your wheelbarrow and go, how'd you get in there? You're not mine. Out you go, bub. So this may be helpful. If it's not completely okay, I understand that the way I speak to make things deliverable for people in my demographic and geographic area may not be your cup of tea. It may be unsweet tea. When you're like me, you gotta have sweet tea. I get that. It's just not to your taste. That's okay too. Meander on over to another pasture and listen to another heifer. We're good. Okay, y'all, let's get started. Victimhood. Okay, so victimhood is normally a very nasty word. And if you've watched the news lately, you've seen victimhood on display for the entire world to see. And yes, I'm talking about Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle, that's how I say her name. I can't say it correctly because every time I hear her name, I just think about all the memes. Meghan Markle. Anyway, we're watching Meghan and Harry. Poor Harry.
Run.
Harry, you're a dumbass. But we're watching Meghan and Harry go through this torrential downpour in the media. And then there's a flip side to where they're getting elevated in the media. This has got to be confusing, especially if you are in a victimhood mindset or have like the rejection mindset or you fear rejection. And while they seem to be terribly strong role models for people, I want to tell you that what is at the base of their issue is the victimhood mentality. That rejection mindset of nobody likes me. I have to find out why these people don't like me, and then I have to blame it on everything that I can't control, because if I can control it, I can change it, and then I can't play this victim card. And if I can't play this victim card, I'm not sure I can overcome this. And, you know, anybody ever worked in team pinning? In team pinning, if we looked at victimhood mentality as team pinning, victimhood mentality would be the heifer that just went and put itself in the pen by itself. Nobody had to do anything to it because it was just, oh, we're going there, good. No, you don't have to help. I can do this all myself. It's a dumb heifer. So we don't want to be that heifer. We want to be the heifer that puts up a little bit of a fight. Doesn't go into that pen. We want the one that can sometimes outsmart its own fear and its own misgivings and its own questionable behavior and go, no, I got this. I can do this. I can outsmart these people, by God. And we want to be that heifer. I'm just telling you, be that heifer. So when I look at the Meghan Markle and Harry thing, I see somebody that, yeah, is probably very, very, very convinced that what they went through was this horrible victimhood extravaganza at the hands of the Queen and the British royalty. They believe that because they've convinced themselves of that, because there is nothing else for them to believe unless they place themselves in a place of blame as well. And if they held any of the blame, then they would hold the responsibility to overcome this, and they do not want that responsibility. So what I see when I see the Prince Harry and Meghan Markle thing are two victims that truly have learned to stay well within the parameters of victimhood status because they enjoy being there. It's where they feel safest, and they would rather play the victim than seek out power to overcome. And what they're doing with the $7 million interview and wagging those fingers and spouting those statements, it's not powerful, and it's not seeking a resolution. It's not seeking to be compatible with those we have issues with. It's not seeking to overcome. It is seeking to point out and blame so that everyone can clearly see that someone else is responsible and I can't change this, and I am the truest victim in every sense of the word. I have no power here. And that's where they find their power. The only power they have is in having no power. Because when you have no power, how can you change anything? You are a victim in every sense of the word. You have no responsibility. Nothing you do will change or augment the situation, and therefore you have no blame. You are Snow White. Nobody can cast doubt upon you because you're the victim. What a safe yet miserable place to live your life. So we're going to talk about how not to end up there and certain things that you need to be aware of. And when I go through this, one of the people that I love how he identifies and talks about victimhood is Dr. De Jesus. I call him Jesus, but it's Dr. De Jesus. And he speaks so clearly, and he speaks from a Christian point of view, but he's also, he has core psychological background that explains what's going on within the mindset, sometimes within the chemical components of the mind. So he's very good. If you want to hear more and more of these, because I just picked out the ones that I wanted to speak about, that I enjoy, that I identify with. And if you want to hear more, go give him a listen. He's a great, great guy. Okay, I've got my notes. So one of the first things on the victim mindset is to understand that when you choose to be a victim, you choose to cap off any growth, any more success, any elevation of yourself in life, any way to get out of whatever you are being the victim within. You stop your growth. You cannot overcome. And victimhood does not creep in. It doesn't just like slowly creep in and sneak up on you. It takes your past and it takes experiences of your past, which is why I say that Meghan and Harry probably do believe everything they're saying because they have past experiences that are very similar, or where they have been probably mistreated or victimized in some way. It takes your past experiences, and it instead of just learning from them, you actually you mold them into your identity. Can you imagine having an identity that is only made up of things that made you feel alone, scared, powerless? Can you imagine now becoming so twisted in the mind that you see that lack of power as power? Do you see where we're going with this? Life is all about power, appropriate power, which comes from choices and attitudes. So you can actually correct yourself until you get to a certain place with victimhood. That's why I want to warn y'all not to get there. But when you do these things and you cap yourself off and you take your past and you let it learn to identify you, and it becomes your identity to where you only also identify yourself as that victim, and those stories you tell get you all the praise that you want. So why would you talk about anything else? You become that role, you become that identity, you become that thing, and you become nothing else. So you have to be careful about what you want to become a victim of, because it will be what you identify as if you get to a certain level with victimhood. When you are in victim mindset, you think you have no options. You actually take away your options. You learn to misidentify or to overlook opportunities for change. You have that rejection mindset where nothing is going to work, so why try it? Everyone hates me. Nobody's going to offer to help. You automatically pretty much put yourself in the grave and say, forget me, I'm gone. You stop allowing yourself personal growth, because you know something, when you feel like you're a victim, when you feel something's not going your way and you're going to have to overcome something, it's because you are on the precipice of a huge breakthrough, and it's scary. Growth is a scary, scary thing. Growth freaks most healthy people out. Imagine what it is to someone who is not mentally healthy or is trapped in a victim mindset and they have a growth opportunity. That has to be one of the most anxiety-riddled moments in anyone's life. So how do we change this? How do we stop letting our enemies learn to identify us and manipulate us by our victim status and by trapping ourselves to make us an even bigger victim because we can't see any way out as well? Well, when you're a victim, you only share reasons that identify you as a victim. And so when you've got that story that is only a victim story and that's the only story you're allowed to have, you can't celebrate. You can't celebrate successes in your life or anyone else's life because you don't see them as celebrations and opportunities that they gained. You see them as a roll of the dice that landed on their head. It was pure luck. Some savior came down and made that occur. They did not do that themselves. It was gifted to them. And by God, you're always the victim. Nobody wants to help you, and you can't get any help if you tried. So you not only disassociate yourself from success and options and opportunities, but you also, when you see other people's successes, you misidentify them and also try to apply that victim mindset because you truly lose your ability to identify options, opportunities, possibilities. You forget how to dream. It holds you back. You have plateaued yourself. You're not changing anymore. You're not growing anymore as a human. You're stuck in this role forever, and this is where you've capped yourself out, and it's your fault. Don't fall into that way of thinking. So when you get to a certain level in victimhood, you start to believe conspiracies, Meghan and Harry, and you really, really become consumed with other people's mode of thinking against you, especially if it gives you that victim out. So we love conspiracies. We love that people are also creating ways in which we have been hurt that we can pull in and use. And once again, we've stolen our own options for change and future growth. You almost become an addict of the chemical changes within your brain. Yes, when you become a victim and people pat you on the head and, the first time you share a story of a trauma that occurred to you, it may feel good to release that. It can. That's why counseling is something that actually works. People will come back because it feels good to release those toxic thoughts. But if you're only ever releasing toxic thoughts, eventually it doesn't feel so good anymore. But since you've capped yourself off from options and opportunities and upward momentum and celebrating, changes in others' lives and your own, that's pretty much the only chemical boost you ever get. So you start becoming very repetitious. You become an addict of telling your story, identifying, having other people identify with you, and having that consolation of victimhood wrap its warm, furry arms around you and squeeze you tight. Because you can't soothe yourself, you can't change your own life because you have capped yourself out, and so you are satisfied with the little chemical dumping you get from the endorphins and adrenaline and dopamine when you tell that victimhood story. So many times when I have people that have been in deep trauma or have benefited from that trauma in some way, we don't relive that trauma multiple times. We talk about it once, we outline it, We identify what we want to change. We identify what we want to stop doing in life. We identify what future growth would look like. And we identify 3 ways to start creating that future growth. And then we drop the trauma story. And we move forward. And that's a very important thing to do, because that trauma story pulls you back. It's like stepping in bubble gum and having it go with your foot. It will pull you back, or it will be with you and leave a trail, that you can always follow back to the scene. We don't want to do that. We want to stop that. We want to disassociate ourselves with the chemical dumping and the feelings and emotions of telling that story, because that story has become toxic and we have to move forward. And when you begin to feel powerless, it does this weird little thing, which I'm sure everyone has seen in the world today. When you feel powerless, you become extremely prejudiced. Are we seeing that happen all over the world, or are we not, y'all? When you put yourself in a victim status, you begin to look at other people and their celebrations, which we can't celebrate. We can't celebrate their success because it might change our victim status. And we can't have anything that would change our victim status. We can't celebrate that. That wasn't anything they earned. It was gifted to them. It was just luck. It just happened to them because it doesn't happen to me. So it must have been just luck for them. So we can't celebrate that. So when we see people that grow and that do things that we feel we can't achieve, there's a little bit of resentment that builds up. And we eventually become very prejudiced against people that have very happy and vibrant lives. And now we're learning to isolate ourselves from people that possibly have the skills that we could latch on to use to grow, because we're mad at them, because we think their growth is not anything they've done, but something that's been given to them by karma, the universe, or some savior that lives somewhere, God knows where. It just poof, there it was. It's not anything they attained. We can't have that. We can't think that we could attain something, because we're a victim. And we like victimhood. It's paying our emotional bills. Effort is a bit much. So we don't want to see other people give effort and attain goals and change their life, because then somebody might think we need to do that too. And that would take away the power we have as a victim. So we get very prejudiced against people that have a different way of thinking, identify cheerfully, look for opportunities, have forward momentum in life, attain their goals. We become very prejudiced against them. And we very much begin to build an inner circle and an outer circle, and we voice that. And if we're not careful, we can actually pull other people into that, because it's such an easy out. Really, I would like to think that if I ever sought to become a victim, that I would be very upset with myself, because it's just so easy. It's just so easy to sit there and give up and pawn it off and put it in somebody else's wheelbarrow. It's just so easy. It's hard to have a fruitful, happy, growing life. It's very, very, very difficult. And it's not anything that happens overnight. Just as victimhood creeps in, it has to creep out. And the successes, they creep in. And then as you build that momentum life, they grow. So success is the better route. It's got the more return on its investment. Victimhood kind of caps you, like I've said. And we become so prejudiced against people that have options, or that we believe have options. They may not have options. They may have just made the best of a bad situation because they have a different attitude, and we will resent them and become prejudiced and begin to hold a grudge, and it could turn into a societal thing. It's very much an easy mindset to adopt because it's so easy to use, and it holds such low accountability that a lot of people just they acclimate right to it, and it's where they think, that's where they believe they should have been their whole life, because at the beginning it feels good, and you don't understand until you're several years in that you've actually destroyed any upward momentum. And by the time you normally realize that, you're either where you need professional help, or you're where you need possibly to see a psychologist and possibly receive a little bit of chemical help via prescriptions or something. And, it becomes a bigger battle at that point because of the inconsistencies and the chemical training within your brain. So you've got to be very careful. You know, you forget that attitude is a choice. You forget that options are a way of looking at things that you can train yourself to do. And the biggest thing that you forget is who you are and what you wanted to see done with your life. You absolutely have no idea what you want when you actually have gone into victimhood mindset, into rejection mindset, and just made camp. You cannot tell someone what you truly want, because when they say, hey, what are your dreams? What do you want in life? You know, what are your dreams? What do you want in life? What's your biggest goals? You can't identify them because they've disappeared. They're gone. You've been stuck in victim mindset so long. Everything comes from someone else. Nothing comes from myself. So if you do have a list, they're goals of like lottery winnings, or God did this for me, or this fell from the sky. It's nothing that you can physically obtain, that you can physically change and do yourself. So it becomes a lottery list of things that will never happen, and that you're sure will never happen, because then that would make you in control of your life. And so you lose your goals and the big things that you wanted, your dreams, you lose them. And when you share your unattainable things with other people, you constantly share your theme of, I can't change my life. It has to be changed by an external force. And eventually you ostracize yourself from caring people because they don't want to be stuck in that mindset. And if they can't change you, they're going to move on. Because a healthy person with a healthy mindset will say, are you beneficial to me? Are you soothing to me? Are you bringing something positive to my life? And if not, I'm out the door. That is a normal, rational mindset. If somebody does latch on to you, you have to be very careful, because they may be latching on to you to manipulate you, to use your victimhood status against you, which is done in society all the time, right? So these are some things that you might want to think about to overcome victimhood and victimhood thinking and rejection mindset, and to understand that when you identify as a victim, it's a choice you have made. You are a willing participant, and you have the control to not make that choice. So if you have identified these things within yourself, sit down and have a long talk with yourself. Make a list. Identify if that is an external something you can change, or an external force, or something you can change. Take everything that's an external force off the table. Only focus on things you can do, things you can change, decisions you can make, and really narrow down that bubble so that you are once again in control of your life and your destiny and your future and your decision making. Don't pawn it off on other people. Don't put your rocks in other people's wheelbarrows. Push your own weight and be a positive force in the world otherwise. And that's my little lesson on victimhood mentality. MommaLiz, out.